Is that a handkerchief?
I guess so.
Nice.
All right, we are live now.
Yeah, I went live.
All right. You want to go ahead and introduce the show and all that?
Yes, absolutely. So today we're here with Nathan Baesel from best known for Behind the Mask, the Rise of Leslie Vernon. Of course, is Leslie Vernon himself. How are you doing this evening?
It's Friday.
Exactly. So people are just going to join periodically. We'll have a chat, and any questions that come in from them, we'll just ask. But we can just we can get started. I know you get something after this, so.
You want me to start?
Yeah, I'm gonna do.
All right. So hi, what's going on? This is obviously everyone. Welcome Leslie Vernon, aka Nathan Baesel. We got him here. Everyone requested him to be on the show, so we got him here. We have a couple of questions about the movie. If you don't mind answering?
Sure.
Solid, man. So, as a fan of the movie, I was always curious about the unique design of the mask. How did that come about? Do you mind talking about that?
Well, I showed up a little bit earlier than some of the other cast, and we were able to see some of the kind of pre-production process, some of the design process, which was really neat to have perspective on that from the very beginning, seeing design element and even having some input in things. You know, my input as far as the mask went was me just taking a look at it and going, yeah, it looks awesome.
Yeah.
It looks like it's made of clay. Like what? Like a
what was it?
mask, or?
Well, we had a few different versions that we used. We had an action one. It was lighter, made of plastic, I think, and that was for jumping around like a monkey. And then we had a heavier one that was more for up close shots. And then we had one that was a breakaway one, or was supposed to break away anyway. In the cider press, we didn't quite get that gag to work, but.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Yeah. The mask is iconic. Like even before I'd seen the movie, I'd seen the mask and I was like, "What the hell is this? I need to see this movie," because the promotional posters were just a mask, and it was Behind the Mask, Rise Leslie. What is this? So I mean, back in the day, that was obviously there was no digital marketing. So I mean. It was. I felt like it was like iconic look back then. Was there any other sort of designs that came up? Like what made them?
I don't think so. It feels like that one was kind of decided early on, whereas some of the other elements of it were kind of getting figured out on the fly, and right. Like what he's wearing, and we decided, or I think I asked to not wear shoes, which was a really stupid.
I was gonna say
it was stupid because you know it was freezing temperatures, and you know it's mud and rocks, and it was just stupid. But it looked good, so yeah, we were kind of figuring that out as things went. But the mask feels like it was kind of hammered out pretty well early on.
For sure. Sure.
Well, I know it's definitely a more unique look for, I guess, a slasher. I definitely consider it a slasher. So your choice of weapon, scythe, right?
Yeah.
That's I feel like it's extremely unique. A lot of the more popular slashers, they don't have that type of shit. They have all knives and whatnot, machetes. So also speaking of the scythe, how did that weapon come about? Like, did you throw that idea out there? They already had that pre-made. Like, how do you?
Yeah, that was already in the script, and I think a lot of consideration was put into how do we best reflect the movies that we're emulating. You know, how do we best reflect the Halloweens and the Friday the 13th and the Nightmare on Elm Streets? You know, how do we work iconically? What is our look for an icon? You know. And I think for the most part, they did a great job translating that into a visual look, a costume, you know. And I think they did that as well with the whole scythe thing. You got to have a knife. You got to have a way to destroy people. But, you know, it's got to be, hey, buddy, have fun. My son just came in. He announced he's going to the bathroom.
Oh, solid.
Nice.
Yeah. So yeah, so the site thing, you know, figuring out how that worked was, I think, just really great. You know, what kind of blade is going to represent somebody iconically, and site hadn't been done, and it made sense with the legend that they were, you know, constructing, Stevie and Scott Glosserman, you know. So then for me, it was just playing around with it, goofing.
It's so unique. The mask, the look, no shoes. Like it's the opposite of what's come before it. And I mean, there's a lot of slasher legends that were in the movie as well, like Robert Englund and
Right.
Odder and Scott Wilson and Zelda Rubinstein. She was in
Yeah.
it. What was it like working with such iconic characters? I can't even begin to imagine.
Oh man, it was great because it was the first film I'd ever done, and it was I was getting, there was so much responsibility that I was being permitted. You know, it wasn't even like it was a weighty thing that they were, you know, putting on my shoulders. They were giving me a lot of free reign, and I love running with as much leash as I'll be given, and so you know I had to I could be plugged into so many different parts of the production, and one of those was the casting. I got to play with every single one of those actors, and I got to play in a really fun way. um, I mean, yeah, Zelda. I think Behind the Mask was her last movie, and
Yeah.
yeah, um, yeah. I mean, she is a legend. That voice is totally iconic. When you're working with her, that's what I'm hearing too.
Yeah.
You know, I'm hearing this house is clean. You know, and the fact that she's cool to work with too. Just you know, it made and especially Robert. You know, he could have Robert Englund. He had every reason in the world to just kind of show up and skate along and check out, you know, but he showed up to play ball, and it was a fascinating result that we got on film. And just personally, the fact that he opened himself up and made himself available to me felt like, oh man, we're getting sanctioned by a legend. And you know, I think it confirmed everybody's belief that if we do this right, if everybody does their jobs and pulls this thing off, we'll be responsible for contributing to just as much of an iconic film as one of those other ones. A different film, you know, completely different in our own way, but one that pays tribute to those movies, and one that stands up on its own in a lot of ways. So.
Agreed, because it's got the found footage feel to it with all the shots done by the
Right.
students, and then it'll cut to this like beautifully shot scene where like right at the very beginning with the brick being pulled and the door being slammed, and then you're just like whoa, and then you realize later on that you're going to find out how that happens. Like no one ever peels back that curtain, so it was really refreshing when I first see it. It was a super refreshing movie for that.
Well, it helped me. The idea, the concept of it helped me, because I tend to not watch a whole lot of horror movies because I tend to get a little bit scared.
Okay, that's fine. Yeah.
And you know, I have seen them, and I certainly felt a lot more responsibility to watch horror films after I did Behind the Mask. But I just hadn't seen a whole lot that growing up. It was more you know, Nightmare on Elm Street. I did see the Nightmare on Elm Street movies, but that was kind of it. But you know, we felt a lot of responsibility to represent those films kind of spiritually, and also visually was part of that as well. You know, the found footage aspect of it was really unique, a really unique way in. But I think what everybody really, when it kicks into that kind of 35 millimeter format, and you're in the kind you're used to in one of the slasher movies, that's almost like you've been prepared as an audience. You've been prepared and conditioned to see the events that are going to play out in the 35 millimeter format. You've been conditioned to see those in a kind of objective, kind of scientific way. Right. So it's not as freaky when you get in there. You know, you can almost be removed a little bit if you want to. You can take a more kind of academic look at those events and how they play out and stuff like that. And that for me was really valuable because it allowed me a way to kind of not distance myself, but just kind of brace myself a little bit, because I could see how thematically there were things that were playing out that were common in films like this, and I could take a more objective look at things if I wanted to.
Of course, yeah, well, that's awesome.
So I'm gonna take this question back a little bit outside of horror. I have a couple questions for you left because I know you're a super busy man, obviously. So, take it back a litup. I was looking up, doing some research. You actually graduated from Juilliard School of Drama. And what is it like to, I guess, graduate from such a prestigious school? When you hear Juilliard, you think of big things. How did it feel to go to school there?
It was a fantastic training opportunity that I was able to take advantage of, and I got every ounce of training that I was hoping to get out of it. By the end of it, I felt like I was totally capable of getting airdropped into any kind of creative space and being able to not just function but thrive. So that was a huge preparation.
Solid, man. That's amazing. Congratulations on that. I don't know anyone in my life other than now speaking you that went to Juilliard, so that's pretty cool. That's awesome.
Yeah, I think a lot of other people had more regard for it than I did, but I appreciate that people see it as a really prestigious program, and it deserves that. But for me, it was I don't know. It was a crucible, it was a training, and it was, difficult at times, but, it was four walls that tended, to hold me and a bunch of other people together and figure out how to work together and collaborate. And, that's just, it's an opportunity, a lot of people don't ever get. So, I was fortunate.
Yeah, it's a hell of an achievement. Congratulations on that, by the way.
Well, thank you.
What you got from John?
And well, speaking of your background there, how did that play into the role in Leslie Vernon? Because I mean, from watching from a fan's perspective, it seems like there's a lot of like ad lib and like one-liners that just seem to come naturally from you. Was there a lot of that when you were shooting the movie? Like one of the ones that stands out was the Paradise Lost. Found it like that line for me. Oh, I love it. But was there a lot of ad lib?
That's my favorite line too.
Yeah. Was that in the script or was that you or?
No, that wasn't in the script. But surprisingly, this is a bad way to start off my explanation, saying that I didn't really improv a whole lot. The improvised nature of it, the feel of it was already built into the script. So really, it was already creating a lot of that feel that comes off, really kind of on the fly. So my job really was just kind of being responsive to what was happening around me at the time. And fortunately, the people that I was working with were great actors and were very engaging. And, so it was very easy to just kind of bounce off of what people were giving me, and that stuff isn't necessarily in the script, but, it makes for some really fun moments sometimes. The Paradise Lost Found It line, no, that was not in the script, but that happened at a party that was a few nights before that, and somebody said it, and I thought it was really, really funny. I can't remember. Nobody can remember who. We can't do we can't figure out who said it, but in any case, we were at a library the last night of shooting. And I thought, oh, this is just too perfect. And we've got a copy of the book, and I shoved it in the stack, and we worked it in.
Another one is I only keep pets that I can eat.
Yeah, that's a great one too. Yeah, that's a good one.
We interviewed Dan Yeager. He played Leatherface in Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3D.
Neat.
And I asked him this question. I'm asking you the same thing. It's also my last question I have right here on my sheet. So Behind the Mask, horror movie. Some even call it a cult classic, right? So yeah, it actually does have a really big cult following. I'm a mask collector. Every mask collector I know has a Leslie Vernon mask sold by Trick or Treat Studios, and that's
that's a really good mask. They put out a really good product, and and it's affordable too. I mean, I saw a lot of masks before Trick or Treat got involved. I saw a lot of masks that were just really, really expensive. They looked great, but they were totally unaffordable, and now people can buy them. You know,
exactly. And that's honestly how I found out about the movie. I wasn't aware of this movie maybe until a couple years ago. I asked someone, "What is that green mask?" It looks similar to something from Courage the Cowardly Dog. I thought it was something from that, and they said it was this movie. So I found out. So here's my question for you: how do you feel about people loving the horror genre? Like, do you feel like, because some people would say, of course, hey, you love horror movies. You're attracted to the blood, the guts, the gore, the weaponry, just that whole thing, the whole 9 yards. How do you feel, or what do you think would be the case for someone who loves horror movies? Do you think there's something like what attracts them? I guess I could say. What do you think would attract someone to horror?
Another thing that really attracted me about the script for Behind the Mask was that it found a way to explain the psychological value of what horror is, and specifically what slasher is, in a way that I could understand, one, and two, appreciate and I kind of identify with, which was that, and Eugene has this line, in order to have, good, you have to have the bad. In order to have, light, you have to have darkness. It's a balance. Right. And evil is not just a necessary part of it. It's a part of it that my character kind of celebrates, I think that's a notion that people who love horror identify with, that there's a lot of good in the world, but there is a lot of bad too, and we have to try to figure out how to make sense of it, rather than shutting it out and pushing it away. That doesn't make sense. So I think that's kind of in the heart of where it's at,
Great answer. Yeah, that's true. I really do agree with all that. The light, the darkness, good, the bad. That's a great way of putting it. That was really good. I like that.
Yeah, I like it too. Now that I'm kind of replaying in my head, that I got to remember that one.
Yeah,
that's a good quote, right?
I got to quote myself on that.
No shit. Hey, I'm gonna go back and quote it. I'll put a picture of Leslie Vernon and just put quotations and tag you.
That'd be great. I need to have it remind me though. I got to set it as a reminder somehow.
We've got a question from one of our friends here, Tony, and he asked, "How did you prepare yourself for the role?"
Well, it was kind of like the not having the shoes bit.
Yeah.
Well, I'm standing out in freezing cold water. Like there is literally water on the edges of the muck that has frozen, and rocks and dirt and this and that. And I'm like standing right there in the middle for long periods, of shooting and whatnot. And I was like, I'm either going to go nuts or I'm going to figure this out. And I figured it out. And what it was, going to just nothing, shutting my mind off, just completely shutting down, like Batman when he meditates, just shutting the whole, thing down and just becoming a machine. And that was a really valuable personal realization for me. I am a machine. I feel nothing. I think nothing. And I will do my business, and I'll do it with purpose.
Again, brilliant answer. There's so many quotes here. The machine. There we go.
I'm out of questions, John. I'm done. I got all the answers
from the people in the chat. Michael Viegas said, "How did it feel to play the lead above these other horror icons that were in the film?" I believe you touched on that earlier. But was there any moments where you're just like, "Holy fucking shit! I'm standing next to Robert Englund in a scene
Yeah, but you know what? Early on, before I had any scenes with him, because I only had scenes with him when we were doing the film, parts of it at the barn and stuff like that. So most of his time out, I didn't get to work with him, but I was still there because we were just wrapping the stuff that I was shooting and whatnot. And he stuck around to. I think, frankly, he stuck around just to see what he got himself into.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they'd probably already sent him some of the auditions stuff that we'd taped, Angela and I, when we were auditioning. So he probably had a sense that we were not terrible, but you have no idea what you're getting into until you actually show up on the location, And I think he stuck around and was pleasantly surprised by what he saw. And so that alone made me feel like what we were doing was, was coming with the approval, the sanctioning of a horror icon. And boy, you couldn't get off to a better leg than that.
Oh, definitely. I probably would have just crumbled. But I was a Julia Arden and then Robert England's like, you're doing a good job. I'd be like,
God. He pulled me aside after we shot the scene by the van, and he was saying, you remind me of a young Anthony Perkins. And I was like, I melted.
Of course. I mean, he's considered an A-lister in the horror community. So
well, and I mean, that performance in Psycho alone is just, oh.
Were you able to keep any props from the movie by chance?
No, it's funny you brought that up. Nobody did. They were all stolen. I took all my gear off when we wrapped shooting at the library. We were shooting the last scenes with Zelda, and I took all my gear off in the little area that had been set up for a dressing room. And I walked out. The director came up to me a little bit later, not too long after, and asked where I'd put everything. I said, I put it in the room. He said, because it's not there. None of it's there. It's all gone. The scythe, the costumes, the masks, all that.
We never found out who did any of that.
No, I think everybody kind of suspects, but
oh shit, drama. Okay.
Oh yeah. Well, it was such a micro budget movie, and everybody was under such extreme conditions to get it done. I mean, Scott himself, the director, he'd completely worn himself to exhaustion on that last day. He was barely functional. He was just walking around like a zombie a lot of the time because he was, existing on, 4 hours, sometimes 3 hours sleep a night, if he was getting any sleep at all. Everybody was just, pushed to the max, but we were all totally unified in the mission. So we got it done. And yeah, and some people walked away with stuff, some people didn't.
I probably saw them on eBay a couple of weeks later.
Yeah, I hope they made something off of it.
If they would have held on to it a little longer, I imagine they would have made a whole lot more.
Oh, get some autographs on it?
Oh, yeah. At convention one day, it's like, oh, here, can you sign this? Like, you look familiar.
Yeah, shit. Do you do conventions at all?
Yeah. I'm doing one in October in Sacramento, Sinister Creature Con. I think that's the second or third week of October. That's always a great one. And I do ones in the area and other areas, yeah.
We typically go to TFW, Texas Frightmare Weekend.
That's a good one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So far, there's not many announced. I believe it's Tim Curry, Elvira, Jeffrey Combs, James Jude Courtney from the new Halloween, which leads me to my next question. Do you have any thoughts on the new Halloween movie? Like, have you seen any of the trailers or anything? Or
yeah, I've seen the trailers. They look impressive. I'm totally down. I'm going to confess something. I saw Halloween for the first time about 2 months ago.
Wow.
And I've only seen the first Halloween movie.
Really?
No.
Yeah, my 15-year-old and I, he said that it was time, and so we sat down and watched it together, and it was fantastic.
Yeah.
But
Okay, so
I appreciate that Jamie Lee Curtis has given it, her thumbs up. That's impressive to me, and I'm a big fan of hers anyway. So I would love to see her in what seems to be like a pretty respectful representation of the franchise.
yeah. Okay, can I give you one recommendation?
Okay.
Please watch the sequel to the first one, Halloween 2.
Okay.
You'll love it. That's
Okay. I'm looking forward to it. I really enjoyed the first one, and I'm a little slow in getting there, but I do feel.
Don't worry, like they got that
baby
movie,
stepping.
They got that movie, The Nun, coming out. They're real scared, and I'm terrified of it.
Yeah, religious horror stuff just really freaks me out. The Exorcist is my probably number one horror film. It just goes right to my religious programming.
Funnily enough, the first Halloween, that's the scene where he's in like the backyard, and then the sheets are flying in the wind.
Yeah,
cuts to him, and he's just standing there.
Yeah.
First saw it, I absolutely shit my pants, and I was like, "Oh my god!" And I genuinely had to turn it off, and I had to continue it like another day, like a week later.
That's great.
And oh man,
I'm so glad you confessed that.
Oh yeah.
There've been so many times that I've just screamed the most high pitched, embarrassing scream. There was one time that I was watching a horror movie, and there were in the row just ahead of me, there were like high school girls that turned around and looked at me and then just laughed in my face because I screamed so embarrassingly high pitched and loud.
Yeah. The only time I've ever done that was when I saw The Grudge.
Okay.
That little ghost movie. It's like The Ring or whatever. It scared the shit out of me.
Mine, I don't even have a good. It was like a jump scare thing. It was like a Final Destination or something like that.
Okay.
Do you know? I get jumpy when I watch Insidious. Not really that scary, but the jump scares are really timed perfectly.
Yeah.
Loud music, Dum.
Music, yeah. That typically gets me.
I ain't got no more questions, John. Okay, I'm good.
The only other question I can see here is from a good friend Larry.
Okay. What's up, Larry?
He's asked, did you ever think that Behind the Mask would have become such a cult classic?
Yeah, absolutely. I think all of us felt like, if we pull this off right, then yeah, we have a chance of doing something special that will, touch some people. And I think all of us have taken a great amount of pride in that. There are a lot of people that respond to the movie.
Yeah.
So enthusiastically, like they've got something really, really special. And I think that's what makes a cult movie is when you feel like you've got something that is like this little gem, and you're going to share it with somebody that you care about, because you know them well enough, and you know their quirks, and you know their ins and outs, and you know that this movie is just really going to, crack the nut for them. And that's what this movie does for a lot of people. And I couldn't be more happy about that.
Yeah, it takes certain chemicals to make a movie last. Like this one, and for instance, it takes certain chemicals to make it last. Not a lot of movies get that cult classic stamp on it. So this movie definitely deserves it first.
All right.
And then we have actually one last question from our friend Lita. She asked, would you do the kill order the way that you did in the movie? Because there was some that she thought should have died. Would you have done it if you had to pick the characters that died? Would you have done it in the same order? Or?
Yeah, I'm not nearly as clever as Leslie. I'm glad that I come off as like a smart dude in the movie, but he's probably better, leaving it up to him. Because I knew so little about horror, honestly, that I was just really dependent on the director and the writer and their familiarity with it to, just leave in the script what I got to say and kind of communicate to me how it's relevant, and then, then I can do it because there's a lot about horror that I'm still learning. Yeah. better to leave it up to the writers.
For sure.
So that's, I gotta say before we end this interview, that's awesome that you're watching all these old horror movies like for the first time. That is actually really, really cool because I can't even remember my first reaction off some of these when I was a kid.
Yeah.
So I can only imagine.
Well, you know, there's a fantastic every Saturday night is a program, Svengoolie, out of Chicago. They run it on MeTV for some of the cable providers. Do MeTV, and every Saturday night they do a super sci-fi Saturday night. They do the old school Batman, they do the old school Star Trek, and they do a monster movie. And so my boys and I have had a real fantastic education in the last few years just from that.
Oh, Svengoolie sounds familiar. I believe I've seen something about Svengoolie in the past. Never watched it, but that sounds fucking brilliant.
Well, I grew up with Elvira. She was on the West Coast.
Yeah.
I don't know how far east she got, but I grew up with Elvira. And Svengoolie kind of ruled the Chicago area. I don't know who did the East Coast. Maybe Elvira was East Coast. I don't even know. She was syndicated, so.
Yeah. I think we know why.
Yeah. she's great, by the way. I did a con with her, and she was my next door neighbor. She was fantastic.
Oh yeah, Cassandra.
Yeah.
She's incredible. She's nice to every single person that ever comes to life.
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
A lot of love for Cassandra Peterson.
Yeah.
Awesome, guys. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure talking to you.
The pleasure was all ours, Nathan. Thank you very much for that. And if you need any horror recommendations, you have me and Al, and we'll shoot them your way, man. Don't worry about it. We've got you.
Yeah, send me your suggestions, and I'll tackle them.
All right, man. You were a great guest, brother. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you, and take care.
Peace out, man.
All right. Bye.